Greetings, my friends. I hope I find you well. This is your brother, Melusi Ndhlalambi from MelVee Broadcasting Network. I just want to share with you a message that says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Your eyesight, your perception is going to be very key as you witness what God, not yourself, will do for you. Stay right there and don't go away as I share this message with you.
MelVee Broadcasting Network, a divine voice out of Africa. Remember to like, to subscribe, and to click the bell.
So the story of Israel's deliverance at the Red Sea is not just a historic event, my friend. So much was involved right there to give us a blueprint, the very blueprint that every believer needs to take into account whenever you're facing impossible situations. Let me unpack the spiritual significance of this passage. I am in Exodus chapter 14, and let's glean some lessons for our journey as we travel our own pathways with God. First, let's look at the place of testing and transformation. God had commanded the Israelites to move and camp at a place, it's a tongue twister, it's called Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, but also opposite the place called Baal-Ziphon. That's Exodus chapter 14, verse 2. And each of these names have deep spiritual meaning. Pi-hahiroth, when I searched the word, it means the mouth of the gorges, or the opening, or opening into the house of gorges. And it symbolizes an entrapment, a place where there seems to be no escape because you've gone into the house, you've gone into a place. And Migdol means the fortress or the tower, a high elevated place, reminding us that while earthly strongholds fail, God remains our refuge. He is the strong tower we can run to. And so they camped before. And Baal-Ziphon means Lord of the North. It's a place where the gods of Egypt were worshipped, where Baal, the false power, would actually be right there. And it was an elevated space towards the northern where the Israelites were to pass by. And God deliberately placed them in a vulnerable position to display his power before the altars of Baal. You see, friends, sometimes God leads us into tight corners, not so much to destroy us, but to glorify himself through our deliverance, because it's going to be a great deliverance. I also want you to realize that the enemy that comes after us, you need to realize that the enemy is a powerful enemy. If you read verse 5, it says that the Egyptian intelligence, I guess it was their central intelligence officers, had informed Pharaoh that Israel has fled. They had that intelligence. And so Pharaoh only pursued Israel when they had truly left Egypt and they were out of Egypt's grip. As long as they remained in Egypt, they were okay with them. And so, likewise, your enemy only attacks when he realizes that you are no longer under his control. When you leave and you decide it's over, that's when the enemy comes after you. The moment you break free from sin, from a toxic relationship, from addictions, or from any oppression, the enemy will pursue you because he wants to reclaim you for himself. But your past has no power over you. I want you to know that when God has set you free, you are free indeed. And the third thing I want you to understand is that don't underestimate the power of your enemy that is pursuing you. The book makes it clear that Pharaoh did not just send a weak army after Egypt, after the Israelites. He sent his finest. The book gives us the numbers. It says 600 choicest chariots, Egypt's elite that symbolized their greatest strength, was deployed to go and chase the Israelites. And all other chariots of Egypt, not just the battalion, but an overwhelming force came towards Israel. Captains were hired, skilled leaders were deployed. to ensure that they have an organized system of attack. This was a formidable, well-equipped military power that was chasing an unarmed, vulnerable bunch of slaves who had nothing really in terms of military training. Yet, despite this overwhelming force and power and expertise, it was not Pharaoh who was in control. It was God, the Almighty, Yahweh himself, Adonai. And so, sometimes in your life, you realize that when you see your enemy, your fear speaks quickly and louder than your faith. Because when Israel saw what was coming, and they knew, they cried out in fear. Sometimes our prayers are our fears. They said it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Have you found yourself praying that prayer? Why did I find myself in this relationship? Fear made them long for the past that God had delivered them from. Can you imagine? Fear. Their words actually reflected doubt and despair and a distrust in God's plan. Remember Mary, when she was at the gravesite, she thought Jesus was a gardener. Be careful that your fears will show you things that are not there. How often do you panic and wish to return to familiar struggles rather than trusting God for victory? Because fear makes us forget our past deliverances and victories. It blinds us and it prevents us from seeing the miracles. And so, my friends, in that time of crisis, thank God for leaders such as Moses, a leader who stood in faith regardless of the situation. Moses responded not from a point of fear, but from a point of divine confidence. He was the one called. He had the stick. He knew what God would do, and he had promised. He says to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. So God was not done saving them and delivering them. He says, the Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. You shall chill. You shall relax. But Moses, this is a dire situation. And yet at that moment, Moses displayed key leadership qualities. There are about 3 of them that Moses displayed, and I want you to take note of these ones. Number 1, he actually showed spiritual insight. He saw beyond the crisis into God's plan for deliverance. Leaders look beyond. Secondly, leaders have unshakable faith. He believed in God's power despite the present impossibilities. And thirdly, Moses took bold action. He obeyed God, did what was impossible, stretched out his hand, and the sea began to part. As Moses was doing that, I want you to realize that great leaders don't just calm the people. They hear from God and also they act in faith. Great leaders, they don't only pray to God, but they hear from God and they take action. That's what God is saying to you today. Because if you know God called you and God made it clear, you are going to deliver my people. There is no way this impossible situation where on one side was a watchtower of the mountain that the verse called Migdol. The place where there was a watchtower, it's a mountain, it's elevated, you can see the whole plain. And God said, you must camp right there by Pi-hahiroth, which is a lower plain on the bottom side, which actually was facing the place where Baal was worshipped. Right there at Baal Zippon, there was a clear sight to the most sacred place where Baal was worshipped. And God came to them right there, and leaders, the leadership of Moses arose. And he said, be still. God will give you victory. You see how important it is to know that God has called you. God has confirmed you will be victorious. And remember, he says, these Egyptians you see here, you will see them no more. And so I want you to understand that God has a strategy in your crisis. He said to Moses, tell the children of Israel to move forward. Move forward where? There's the Red Sea right there. Where are they going forward to? Backward, the armies are coming. The other side, there's a desert. So faith requires that you move when there's no evidence of what you're looking for. Sometimes miracles only happen when we step forward. The Red Sea won't part. Jordan River won't part until you step in. God shifted position and moved the cloud between Israel and Egypt, bringing light to his people and darkness to the enemies. Only when they moved did God do that. Are you not limiting God by not moving by faith? Because sometimes your miracles will happen as you go. When God fights for you, often he also, this is another strategy, he also confuses the enemy while he protects you. And he opens the way for you to move forward while the enemy is still confounded. Move by faith. Your healing will come as you go to the priest. Let's talk about the miracle finally in the Red Sea. So God uses the whole night to dry up the seabed, ensuring that by early morning, they walked on dry ground. This breakthrough was not partial. It was complete, my friends. I want you to look at something. I know many of you may not have read this. And so I want you to take note of what the book says. I want us to read from verse 24. It says, it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire. The dramatic scene here just caught my attention. I was like, wow. What time was it? Early in the morning. He looked through as the dry ground has appeared and Israel is moving through the dry ground early in the morning. God looks to the Egyptians and troubled the host of the Egyptians. God will cause confusion in the camp of your enemies. Telling you, my friends, when God steps into your problems, even your enemies will know we are not fighting this guy alone. We are not fighting this woman alone, because God fights for his own. He delivers them. And I want you to see what it says as well on that same verse as we move on to verse 27. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared. So at that time, God looks at the Egyptians. He also tells Moses, lift up your hand now and stretch, because these guys have come into the tunnel. They have pursued Israel into a miraculous opening. Yes, the same path that saved Israel became the path of destruction for Pharaoh. When Egypt pursued, their chariots got stuck in the mud. I think there were angels that came and unwheeled them and jammed them in the mud. But Israel had passed through, and God caused the whole army to drown in the sea as Moses lifted up his arm. So the enemy that pursued sealed their own fate. Pharaoh's probation actually closed as he resisted God's will to the end. So those who resist you, God will make sure they come to an end. They will drown. Your enemy will drown in your breakthrough. That which God opens for you is not for your enemy. And if the enemy tries to follow you through your blessing, they must and they will perish in Jesus' name. Pharaoh's army drowned in the very waters that had been separated to deliver Israel. What is your Red Sea today? Possibly a financial crisis. Things are not coming together. Possibly a failing relationship. And maybe you are battling with some secret vice or some sin. Let me say to you today, God will make a way for you. But your enemies and your sin, He will bury them in the same place of your victory. You must sing a song of victory, because when Israel saw their enemies dead on the shores and being washed on the shores, they sang a new song. What did they say? The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. It's about your salvation, my friends. It's about God saving you. Your testimony is coming. Endure the test for now. The fear of today will be the song of victory tomorrow. Let me wrap this up for you. Let me share with you perhaps what I see here. Stand still. Stand still. And keep moving forward. Don't give up. God placed you in that tight spot to glorify himself. The enemy only attacks you when he knows you are leaving or you have left. As long as you are in his camp, you're okay. And let me tell you this, no weapon that is formed against you will succeed when God is fighting for you. Fear will try its effort. It will tempt you to return, give up, and give in. But faith is saying, keep pressing, keep moving. The breakthrough of God is coming. Your breakthrough is your enemy's grave. So today, I want you to stand still and move forward and watch as God fights for you. He will silence your enemies. He will eliminate them. Don't be afraid. David prayed and said, Lord, take them out of the way. God is able to do that. And so trust him today that you should stand still and see his salvation. Amen.